Hey, it's Mahogany and welcome to my channel. Today we're apartment hunting in Germany. Disclaimer, I saw about 10-ish apartments, but there were some tenants still living in the units. So out of respect for their privacy, I will not be showing them or their belongings on the internet. But let's get right into the video. So I have my notes. So I will say this process was a little bit different for me. I was not searching or looking for an apartment on my own. I did have a realtor to help me. So they pretty much did take care of the heavy listing. So I was not reaching out to any of the landlords or property managers to find a place on my own. He took care of that. All I did was send in apartments that I wanted to see, and if he had any recommendations, I would say yes or no, and that's pretty much where my involvement stopped. Typically, when you're apartment hunting here, or so I've heard and done research on, you will send in your application. Your application will consist of your name, your age, where you're from, where you're currently living or would like to live. Are you living with anyone? You also need to send in a picture of yourself. So I didn't particularly do any of this because I was relocating with work. I did have to send in a picture of myself. They already knew what I did for a living and where I worked at. They kind of just knew like where I was coming from, like my home country and my income. In terms of what did I like to do, a lot of that was done during the apartment viewings. So it's very much a place where you need to see the landlord or see the current tenant and really talk them up, really chat with them, and kind of like get on their good side, because then the landlord will probably be like, hey, yeah, I actually like their vibe, I will go with them, or the tenant will be able to recommend you. So that is kind of how the process went. I literally gave them my basic information, the realtor my basic information, set up apartment viewings, and then I would go to the apartment viewings. I would see the place, I would talk to the tenants, and then usually the property manager or the landlord, if they were there, then my realtor would speak with them because they mainly spoke German, and just kind of like get a feel for them and really schmooze them up, and really make sure that they knew I was like a good person, someone who's really responsible, especially because I'm on the younger side, and just knowing like I'm not going to be here for like 6 months and leave. I'm working at a very reputable brand, things like that. So that was kind of, it wasn't just let me see an apartment and take a tour, do I like it, yes or no. It was almost kind of like an interview. Against my needs and wants, non-negotiables, my budget was between 1,200 and 1,300 euros. I wanted to stay closer to 12. If we could even get under that, that was preferable. But I was willing to do closer to 1,300 if I really fell in love with the place, because I understand that I would like a lot of space, and that's kind of hard to find here in Europe. So if I do want something with more space, it's going to be on the pricier side. I was looking for a 1-bedroom, non-negotiable, with a kitchen. So let me explain the kitchen thing. A lot of apartments here in Germany don't come with kitchens. So what do I mean by that? It's literally just a blank wall. It's a blank space, and you have to design and buy all of your kitchen appliances and cabinetry yourself. So a lot of the times, if a tenant is already in the place before you, some people will move with their kitchens, but a lot of the times people tend to sell their kitchen. So if you're renting, they'll be like, hey, I'm putting my kitchen for sale with the place, you can have it at X amount of price. So I was looking for a place that already had a kitchen included, preferably something that I didn't have to pay extra for. So something that the tenant was not selling, that already came from the landlord. I wanted something that was recently renovated or a new build. Now, a new build wasn't something that was super important to me, but having things that are up to date is and was. So it didn't need to be in the newest building, but I at least wanted something that like you could tell was refreshed in the last 10 to 15 years. Okay, so non-negotiable, another must-have was I wanted this apartment to be bare minimum 50 meters squared, because I believe my studio in LA was 515 square feet. I think. And honestly, I was outgrowing that space. So bare minimum space I knew I absolutely needed here was 50 meters squared and up. Moving to this area, I did want to be inside the city. That was my goal, only because that is what a lot of people told me was the best, especially when you're moving here as a foreigner. It can be really hard to get acclimated, and at least you're in the city where there's a little bit more going on. Maybe not as much as the cities I'm used to at home in the States, but there's still some things to do. I think it just happened to be the timing that I was moving. There were not that many apartments available as different as I saw previously. So it did force me to look outward, and especially for the amount of space that I was looking for, also had to expand my boundaries. But preferred, nice to have would be living inside the city. Another nice to have would be parking. Nice to have would be 2 to 3 bedrooms. Now I say this because the budget that I have, I was seeing apartments that had 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms for the same amount of price as a 1 bedroom. So if I did find a place that was within the 12 to 1300 range that was 2 bedrooms, I would have went for it, because I personally have a lot of clothes and I would have made another room as a closet room. So that was a nice to have, not a must have. Okay, so enough chit chat. Let's just get into the apartments. So a disclaimer, all of these places were within my budget, so I'm not even gonna go within prices. Just know nothing exceeded $1,300. So with the first place, I do think it was a bit overpriced. It was creeping up towards the higher end, and the reason why I think it was overpriced was because it was super outdated. I don't think it had been touched since 1982 vibe, even though I had a lot of space. The kitchen was just super outdated, and honestly, it was a little grimy. And I didn't want to move into that. Apartment number 2 was one of my favorites. It was in the perfect area. It was on the top floor. The kitchen was so good. It was so amazing. A lot of space in the living room. Its downfall was the bedroom. I don't even think it could fit my bed. So then I started trying to rationalize, like, maybe if I split the living room in half and made part of it my bedroom, part of the living room my living room, and then made the bedroom my closet room. Then I said, wait, we're not spending this much money just to live in a studio. Like, if I went to live in a studio, I could go look at a studio. So just for that, because the bedroom was too small, I did not go with this place. So apartment number 3 actually wasn't bad. It was a new build, and I mean, there's nothing to complain about. I actually do have 3 problems with it, though. I just said there's nothing to complain about. Anyway, location was not my favorite. When I say it was in the middle of nowhere, it was in the middle of nowhere. Number 2, the balcony, it had like it was an inset balcony, so when it rained, the water would be pulling up, and the drain was just a slit in the concrete on the side, and it was just it was like an inch or 2 inches up. So I would have been stepping into like a whole 2 inches of rain on my balcony, and it rains a lot here. So that was like an immediate no for me. And then the third problem was that the washer and dryer, there is space for you to hook it up in the basement in a public space. So there really was like no telling whether somebody random could just come in and use your washer and dryer, which was just confirmed that this place was a no for me. Now, this last apartment I absolutely fell in love with. I think this was the second apartment that I fell in love with. And the reason why I didn't go with it was because of the spiral staircase. So it was literally in the center of the city, perfect location, literally like right near the restaurants and the bars that I go to. Like, go downstairs, it's right there. The reason why I didn't go to this place mainly was because of the spiral staircase, and I had to buy the kitchen. The kitchen was, I personally thought they were asking a little too much for the kitchen. They were asking over, I think it was 2,500 euros for the kitchen, and the kitchen was dinged up. It wasn't like it was brand spanking new, and it was small. So I was like, I wasn't totally comfortable paying that much for something that was not in the best shape. And then the spiral staircase was super narrow. Super narrow. I could see a lot of accidents happening there, not even just with myself, but if I had visitors, and also moving things in and out. Like if I got big deliveries that I had to handle myself, I didn't know how that was going to be possible. But it was mainly the spiral staircase and having visitors. I saw that being an issue for family members, or if I have friends and we have a late night, I didn't think it was going to go too well. So that, even though it was my favorite with the walk-in closet, I had to say no just because it just wasn't realistic. There was no parking. The added price for a kitchen I didn't think was worth it, and then their staircase, nobody would want to come see me. So all in all, my thoughts on the process, it was interesting. It took a week in total for me to look at all the apartments and me to pick one. I definitely do think it was interesting just because there was literally something wrong with every single apartment. I do think part of it was the time of year that I was looking. I was apartment hunting in July. Everybody moves in the summertime. So, mind you, I had like seen apartments around December. I had seen apartments around April. Perfect. Nothing wrong with them. Literally everything I could want and I was asking for. So again, I do think a lot of it had to do with the time of year. The way they do apartments here, it's not on a first come, first served basis. The landlord literally looks at all of the applications and picks their favorite one. So I do think there is some room for bias in, well, especially if you're picking your favorite one. So that is definitely something that's different coming from the States. Like, to be super candid, I think I asked for a viewing for over 40 places and only 13 got back to me. I canceled, I think it was 12. I canceled 2 of them just because I knew it wasn't gonna work. Like, the places were too small, or it was in a neighborhood I didn't want to be in. And then the third one, the guy actually just stood me up. So I don't know how I feel about the whole turning in application and a picture and literally telling them about your life like it's a job interview. But overall, all in all, it was a pretty smooth process. It could have been worse. I have experienced worse. The conditions of the homes are pretty well maintained, pretty well taken care of, so I can't really complain there. It really was just the fact that like there was like one thing wrong with each place, whether it was the floor level, the washer and dryer space is meant for me in the basement in a public area, or really just like there's not enough storage. But like I said, it could have been 10 times better. My experience moving in LA was horrendous with all of the bugs and roaches. Clearly, I have found a space that is all set up, and I'm excited to share with you guys. I don't know what else to say.